ASMR, reading you to sleep, Lord of the Rings. Hi, welcome here. It's Jessica Mahoney, and this is an ASMR reading you to sleep. We've been reading Fellowship of the Ring. If you're new here, this is what we'll be reading. Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Lord of the Rings, Part 1. So, we are on Chapter 3. We finally made it so far, but I mean, I wouldn't really say it's a long read, right? It's just too much rumbling, maybe. It's been a long read, and we're still reading, and yeah, let's get started. Let's get into it. Chapter 3. 3 is company. You ought to go quietly, and you ought to go soon, said Gandalf. 2 or 3 weeks has passed, and still Frodo made no sign of getting ready to go. I know, but it is difficult to do both, he objected. If I just vanish like Bilbo, the tale will all be over the Shire in no time. Of course he mustn't vanish, said Gandalf. That wouldn't do it all. I said soon, not instantly. If you can think of any way of slipping out the Shire without it being generally known, it'll be worth a little delay, but you must not delay too long. But what about the autumn, or on or after our birthday? Asked Frodo. I think I could probably make some arrangements by then. To tell the truth, he's very reluctant to stay, now that it had come to the point. Bag End seemed a more desirable residence than it had for years, and he wanted to savour as much as he could of his last summer in the Shire. When autumn came, he knew that part, at least of his heart, would think more kindly of journeying, as it always did at that season. He had indeed privately made up his mind to leave on his 5th birthday, Bilbo's 128th. It seemed somehow the proper day on which to set out and follow him. Following Bilbo was uppermost in his mind, and one thing that made the thought of leaving bearable. He thought as little as possible about the ring and where it might have led him in the end, but it did not tell all his thoughts to Gandalf, but he did not tell all his thoughts off to Gandalf. What the wizard guessed was always difficult to tell. He looked at Frodo and smiled. Very well, he said, I think that will do. But it must not be any later. I am getting very anxious. In the meanwhile, do take care and don't let out any hint of where you are going. And see if Sam Ganji does not talk. If he does, I really shall turn him into a toad. As for where I am going, said Frodo, it would be difficult to give that away, for I have no clear idea myself yet. Don't be absurd, said Gandalf. I am not warning you against leaving an address at the post office, but you are leaving the Shire, and that should not be known until you are far away. And you must go, or at least set out, either north, south, west, or east, and the direction should certainly not be known. I have been so taken up with thoughts of leaving Baggin and saying farewell that I have never even considered the direction, said Frodo, for where I am to go, and by what shall I steer? What is to be my quest? Bilbo went to find a treasure, there and back again, but I go to lose one, and do not return as far as I can see. But you cannot see very far, said Gandalf. Neither can I. It might be your task to find the cracks of doom, but that quest may be for others. I do not know. At any rate, you are not ready for that long road yet. No, indeed, said Frodo. But in the meantime, what course am I to take? Towards danger, but not too harshly, not too straight, answered the wizard. If you want any advice, make for Rivendell. That journey should not prove too perilous, though the road is less easy than it was, and it will grow worse as the year fails. Rivendell, said Frodo. Very good. I will go east, and I will make for Rivendell. I will take Sam to visit the elves. He will be delighted. He spoke lightly, but his heart was moved suddenly with a desire to see the house of Elrond, half elven, and breathe the air of that deep valley where many of the fair folk still dwelt in peace. One summer's evening, an astonishing piece of news reached the ivy bush and green dragon. Giants in other portions of the border of Shire were frightened for more important matters. Mr. Frodo was selling Bag End. Indeed, he had already sold it to the Sackville Bagginses. For a nice bit too, said some. At a bargain price, said others, and that's more likely when Mistress Mabella, the buyer, Otto, had died some years before at the ripe but disappointed age of 102. Just why Mr. Frodo was selling his beautiful hall, even when debatable than the price, a few held theory, supported by the nods and hints of Mr. Baggins himself, that Frodo's money was running out. He was going to leave Hobbiton and live a quiet way on the proceeds of Sail Down and Buckland among his Brandybuck relations. As far as from Sackville Bagginses, as may be, some added, but so firmly fixed the notion of immeasurable wealth, the Bagginses of Bag End became the most found. This hard, but so firmly fixed had the notion of the immeasurable wealth of the Bagginses of Bag End became most found. This hard to believe, harder than any other reason, one reason their end fancy could suggest. To most it suggested a dark yet unrevealed plot by Gandalf, though he kept himself very quiet and did not go about by day. Though he kept himself very quiet, did not go about by day, it was well known that he was hiding up in the Bag End. But, however, a removal might fit in with the designs of his wizardry, there was no doubt about the fact. Frodo Baggins was going back to Buckland. Yes, I shall be moving this autumn, he said. Mary Brandybuck is looking out for a nice little hole for me, or perhaps a small house. As a matter of fact, with Mary's help, he had already
He had already chosen and bought a little house at Crick Hollow in the country beyond Bucklebury. To all but Sam, he pretended he was going to settle down there permanently. The decision to set out eastward had suggested the idea to him, for Buckland was the eastern borders of the Shire, and as he had lived there in childhood, his going back had at least seemed credible. Gandalf stayed in the Shire for over 2 months. Then, one evening, at the end of June, soon after Frodo's plan had been finally managed, he suddenly announced that he was going off again next morning. "Only for a short while, I hope," he said, "but I am going down beyond the southern borders to get some news if I can. I've been idle longer than I should." He spoke lightly, but it seemed to Frodo that he looked rather worried. "Has anything happened?" he asked.
Thought I'd give you some cinematics. If you're watching this far, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Let's get back. Next morning. "Only a short while, I hope," he said, "but I'm going down beyond the southern borders to get some news if I can. I've been idle longer than I should." He spoke lightly, but it seemed to Frodo that he looked rather worried. "Has anything happened?" he said. "Well, no. I've heard something that has made me anxious and needs looking into. If I think it necessary, after all, you get off at once. I shall come back immediately, or at least send word. In the meanwhile, stick to your plan, or at least but be more careful than ever, especially of the ring. Let me impress on you once more. Don't use it." He went off at dawn. "I may be back any day," he said. "At the very least, I shall come back for the farewell party, I think. After all, you may need my company on the road." At first Frodo was a good deal disturbed, and wondered often what Gandalf could have heard. But his uneasiness wore off, and in the fine weather he forgot his troubles for a while. The Shire had seldom seemed so fair in summer, or so rich in autumn. The trees were laden with apples. Honey was dripping in the globes. The corn was tall and full. Autumn was well underway before Frodo began to worry about Gandalf again. September was passing, and there was still no news of him. The birthday and the removal drew nearer, and still he did not come or send word. Bag End began to be busy. Some of Frodo's friends came to stay and help him with the packing. There was Fridger, Bolger, and Folko Buffin, and of course his special friend, Pippin, Took, and Mercy Brandybuck. Between them they turned the whole place upside down. On September 20th, 2 covered carts went off laden to Buckland, conveying the furniture and goods that Frodo had not sold to his new home, by way of the Brandywine Bridge. The next day Frodo became really anxious and kept a constant lookout for Gandalf. Thursday, his birthday morning, dawned as fair and clear as it had long ago for Bilbo's great party. Still, Gandalf did not appear.
In the evening, Frodo gave his farewell feast. It was quite small, just a dinner for himself and his 4 helpers, but he was troubled and felt in no mood for it. The thought that he would soon have to part his young friends weighed on his heart. He wondered how he would break it to them. The 4 younger hobbits were, however, in high spirits, and the party soon became cheerful, in spite of Gandalf's absence. The dining room was bare except the table and the chairs, but the food was good, and there was good wine. Frodo's wine has not been included on the sale to Sackville Bagginses. Whatever happens to the rest of my stuff when the SBS get their claws in it? At any rate, I have found a good home for this, said Frodo, as he drained his glass. It was the last drop of old vineyards. Old vineyards. Whatever happened when they had sung many songs and talked of many things they had done together, they toasted Bilbo's birthday, and they drank to his health, and Frodo's together, according to Frodo's custom. Then they went out for a sniff of air and a glimpse of the stars, and then they went to bed. Frodo's party was over, and Gandalf had not come. The next morning they were busy packing another cart with the remainder of the luggage. Mary took charge of this and drove off with Fatty. That's the Freja Bulgar. Someone must just get there and warm the house before you arrive, said Mary. Well, see you later, the day after tomorrow. If you don't go to sleep on the way. Volker went home after lunch, but Pippin remained behind. Frodo was restless and anxious, listening in vain for a sound of Gandalf. He decided to wait until nightfall. After that, if Gandalf wanted him urgently, he would go to Crick Hollow and might even get the first, for Frodo was going on foot. His plane for pleasure had last took the Shire as much as any other person, as much as any other reason, was to walk from Hobbiton to Buckleberry Ferry, taking it fairly easy. I should get myself a bit into training too. He said, looking at himself in a dusty mirror in the half-empty hall. He had not done any strenuous walking for a long time, and reflection looked rather flabby, he thought. After lunch, the Sackville Bagginses, Lobella and her sandy-haired son, Loto, turned up, much to Frodo's annoyance. Ours at last, said Lobella, as she stepped inside. It was not polite, nor strictly true, for the sale of Baggin did not take effect until midnight, but Lobella can perhaps be forgiven. She had been obliged to wait about 77 years longer for Baggin than she was hoped. And she was now 100 years old. Anyway, I had come to see that nothing she had paid for had been carried off. She wanted the keys. It took a while to satisfy her. She had bought her and went right through it. In the end, she departed with Lodo and the spare key and the promise that the other key would be left at Ganges in Bagshot Row. She snorted and showed plainly that she thought the Ganges capable of plundering the hall during the night. Frodo did not offer her any tea. He took
his own tea with Pippin and Sam Gamgee in the kitchen. It had been officially announced that Sam was coming to Buckland to do for Mr. Frodo and look after his bit of garden, an arrangement that was approved by the gaffer, though it did not console him for the prospect of having Labella as a neighbour. Our last meal at Bag End, said Frodo, pushing back his chair. They left the washing up for Labella. Piping and Sam strapped up their 3 bags, pulled them in the porch. Piping went out for a last stroll in the garden. Sam disappeared. The sun went down. Bag End seemed sad and gloomy and dishevelled. Bag End seemed sad and gloomy and dishevelled. Frodo wandered round the familiar rooms and saw the light of the sunset fade on the walls and shadows creep out of the corners. It grew slowly dark indoors. He went out and walked down to the gate at the bottom of the path and then on a short way down the hill road. He half expected to see Gandalf come striding up through the dusk. The sky was clear and the stars were growing bright. It was going to be a fine night, he said out loud. That's good for a beginning. That's good for a beginning. I feel like walking. I can't be any more hanging out. I'm going to start. Gandalf must follow me. He turned to go back and then stopped, for he heard voices just round the corner by the end of Backshot Row. One voice was certainly the old gaffer's. The other was strange and somehow unpleasant. He could not make out what it said, but he heard the gaffer's answers, which were rather shrill.
The old man seemed put out. No, Mr. Baggins has gone away. This morning, and my Sam went with him. Anyway, all his stuff went. Yes, sold out and gone. I tell thee. Why? Why is none of my business? All yours. Where to? That ain't no secret. He's moved to Buckleberry or some such place. Away down yonder. It is a tiddy way. I've never been so far myself. There are queer folks in Buckland. No, I can't give no message. Good night to you. Footsteps went away down the hill. Frodo wondered vaguely why the fact that he did not come on up the hill seemed a great relief. I'm sick of questions and curiosity about my doings. I suppose, he thought, what an inquisitive lot they all are. He had half a mind to go down and ask the gaffer who the inquirer was, but he thought better or worse of it.
And turned and walked quickly back to Bag End. Pippin was sitting on his pack in the porch. Sam was not there. Frodo stepped inside the dark door. Sam, he called. Sam, time. Coming, sir, came the answer far within, followed soon by Sam himself, wiping his mouth. He had been saying farewell to the beer barrel in the cellar. All aboard, Sam, said Frodo. Yes, sir. I'll last for a bit now, sir. Frodo shut and locked the door, and locked round the door. He gave to Sam. Run down with this to your home, Sam, he said. Then cut along the row and meet us as quick as you can at the gate lane beyond the meadows. We are not going through the village tonight. Too many ears peeking, too many ears prickling and eyes prying.
Sam ran off at full speed. "Well now, you're awfully lost," said Frodo. They shouldered their packs and took up their sticks and walked round the corner to the west side of Bag End. "Goodbye," said Frodo, looking at the dark black windows, waved his hand, and then turned, and following Bilbo, if he had known it, hurried after Peregrine down the garden path. They jumped over the low place in the hedge at the bottom and took to the fiddlesticks, passing into the darkness like a rustle in the grasses. At the bottom of the hill, on its western side, they came the gate opening onto a narrow lane. They halted and adjusted the straps of their packs. Presently Sam appeared, trotting quickly and breathing hard. His heavy pack was hoisted up on his shoulders, and he had put his head on a tall, shapeless felt bag, which he called a hat. In the gloom he looked very much like a dwarf. "I'm sure you have given me all the heaviest stuff," said Frodo. "I pity snails, and all that carry their homes on their backs. I could take a lot more yet, sir. My packet is quite light," said Sam shoutily and untruthfully. "No, you don't, Sam," said Piping. "It is good for him. He's got nothing except what he ordered us to pack. He's been slack lately, and he'll feel the weight less when he walked off some of his own." "Be kind to poor old Hobbit," laughed Frodo. "I shall be as thin as a willow wand, sure, before I get to Buckland. But I was talking nonsense. I suspect you have taken more than your share, Sam, and I shall look into it at our next packing." He picked up his stick again. "Well, we all like walking in the dark," he said, "so let's put some miles behind us before bed." For a short way they followed the lane westwards, then, leaving it, they turned in quietly to the fields again. They went in single file along the hedges, along the hedgerows and the borders of coppices. And night fell dark about them. In their dark cloaks they were as invisible as if they all had magic rings, since they were all hobbits and were trying to be silent and made no noise that even hobbits could hear. Even the wild things in the fields and the woods hardly noticed their passing. At some point they crossed the water west of Hobbiton by a narrow plank bridge. The stream was there no more than a winding black ribbon, bordered with leaning elder trees. A mile or two further south they hastily crossed the great road from the Brandywine Bridge. They were now in the Tookland, and bending south-eastwards they made for the Green Hill country. As they began to climb its first slopes, they looked back and saw the lamps in Hobbiton far off twinkling in the gentle valley of the water. Soon it disappeared in the folds of the darkened land, and was followed by water besides its grey pool, and the light of the last farm was far behind, peeping amongst the trees. Frodo turned and waved a hand in farewell. "I wonder if I shall ever look down into that valley again," he said quietly. When they had walked for about 3 hours, they rested. The night was clear, cool and starry, but smoke like wisps of mist were creeping up the hillsides from the streams and deep meadows. Thin-clad birches, swaying in a light wind above their heads, made a black net against the pale sky. They ate a very frugal supper for hobbits, and then went on again. Soon they struck a narrow road that went rolling to Woodle and Stock and the Buckleberry Ferry. It climbed away from the main road in the water valley and wound over the skirts of the green hills towards Woody End, a wild corner of the East Farting. After a while, they plunged into a deeply cloven track between all trees that rustled their dry leaves in the night. It was very dark. At first they talked or hummed a tune softly together, being now far away from inquisitive ears. Then they marched on in silence. Pippin began to lag behind. At last, they began to climb a steep slope. He stopped and yawned. "I'm so sleepy," he said, "that soon I shall fall down on the road. Are you going to sleep on your legs?" "It is nearly midnight." "I thought you liked walking in the dark," said Frodo. But there's no great hurry. Mary expects us sometime in the day after tomorrow. But that leaves us nearly 2 days more. We halt at the first likely spot. "The wind's in the west," said Sam. "If we get to the other side of this hill, we shall find a spot that is sheltered and snug enough, sir. There's a dry fir wood just ahead. If I remember rightly, Sam knew the land well within 20 miles of Hobbiton, but that was the limit of his geography. Just over the top of the hill, they came on the patch of fir wood. Leaving the road, they went into the deep, resin-scented darkness of the trees and gathered dead sticks and cones to make a fire. Soon they had a merry crack of a flame at the foot of the large fir tree. They sat around it for a while. Until it began to nod. Then, in an angle of the great tree's roots, they curled up in their cloaks and blankets and were soon fast asleep. They set no watch. Even Frodo feared no danger yet, for they were still in the heart of the Shire. A few creatures came and looked at them when the fire had died away. A fox passing through the wood on business of his own stopped several minutes and sniffed. "Hobbits," he thought. "Well, what next? I have heard of strange doings in this land, but I have seldom heard of a hobbit sleeping out of wit under a tree. 3 of them. There's something mighty queer behind this." He was quite right, but he never found out any more about it. The morning came, pale and clammy. Frodo woke up first and found that a tree root had made a hole in his back, and that his neck was stiff. Walking for pleasure. Why didn't I drive, he thought, as he usually did at the beginning of an expedition. He stretched. "Wake up, hobbits," he cried. "It's a beautiful morning." "What's beautiful about it?" said Pippin, peering over the edge of his blanket with one eye. "Sam, get breakfast ready for 9:30. Have you got the bath water hot?" Sam jumped up, looking rather bleary. "No, sir, I haven't, sir," he said. Frodo stripped the blankets off Pippin and rolled him over, and then walked off the edge of the wood. all we have time for today. Thank you so much for
See
watching.
you soon.